guys, Michael with Mike's Extraordinary Soap. I am making my first video for soap at the urging of my friend, and today I'm gonna do my Mexican hot chocolate soap, which is one of the first ones in my fall line. So this soap is cold process and vegan, and once we get the soap in the mold, we're going to pipe soap on top, put a little bit of cinnamon, and then put caramel, which is really soap. First and foremost, when you're making any soap, you're dealing with chemicals, so it's really important to take safety. So that means gloves on your hands, eye protection over your eyes, and this is not absolutely necessary, but it's what I use, is a face mask. I splattered lye on my face before and blistered up my lips, and I don't recommend it, so better safe than sorry. If you're new to soaping and you're not really sure about Lye Safety, please look at the videos down in the links with Soap Queen through Brambleberry. They have a great tutorial for beginners on safety. Please stop watching this tutorial and watch those first. So I have pre-mixed my oils, and this is coconut oil, olive oil, canola oil, castor oil, and palm oil. I'm gonna use this little bottle to mix a little bit of the soap with 24K gold mica, which is this one, which we're gonna use to make the caramel. I'm gonna use these tools. It's an eighth of a teaspoon, a chopstick, and a spoon. I'm gonna use my scale. I'm gonna use brown oxide coloring. I'm gonna use bentonite clay to help the fragrance stick. I'm using Caribbean chocolate fragrance oil from Crafter's Choice, aka Wholesale Supplies Plus, because it's just a really great smelling fragrance oil. So for this next step, I'm gonna take a little bit of bentonite clay, and I'm gonna put it in the cup that will have my fragrance. And not only does this give the soap a nice slip, but it also absorbs the fragrance and makes it more likely to stay. I'm gonna tare the scale, which means we're setting it to 0. And I'm gonna pour in 1.5 ounces of fragrance oil. And this is enough for my mold, which will have 50 ounces of soap, 50 ounces of oils. It comes out to about 75 ounces of soap. We're gonna go ahead and mix this really nice so that the bentonite clay has a chance to soak in this gorgeous Caribbean chocolate fragrance. And then I'm gonna go ahead and set it aside and let it marinate a little bit. So I have made my lye already earlier today in a 1-to-1 ratio, which means it's only a portion of the water that we need. So because I'm using 38% of my oil weight in water, and I've only used 7 ounces of water in the lye, means I need to make up another 12 ounces of water. So I'm gonna measure that out right here, and then we're going to mix in our powdered coconut milk. I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon of that. And I'm gonna whisk, whisk, whisk. Next, I'm gonna pre-mix my titanium dioxide, which will be for the white. I'm gonna take a teaspoon of that and put it into this large 10-cup container. And I prefer water to mix my titanium dioxide than oil. So I have a little bit of distilled water left. Just pour it in there. And then we're gonna mix this really nice with a chopstick too. So I'm gonna take my pre-mixed oils, and I'm gonna pour in this mixture of coconut milk and water to make up that 38% water before we add our lye. And I'm gonna mix this really nice. Next, I'm gonna pour in our fragrance and bentonite clay. And I know some people do this after trace. I prefer to do it at the beginning so that everything is consistently scented, and if there was to be some strange change in the scent than it would happen uniformly throughout the soap. The scent also has vanilla in it, so it's going to discolor to darker color. In our case, that's not a big deal because it's a chocolate soap, so it's already going to be brown, and if the white's a little bit tan, I think that's okay. And give that a little bit of a blend to make it nice and white. So now I'm going to take my lye, which I've pre-mixed earlier, 7 ounces of lye to 7 ounces of water. I'm going to mix it up a little bit more with my chopstick because it's possible at a 1-to-1 concentration that some of the lye has recrystallized, which it has in this case. And so I do not get lye chunks in there and burn anyone. I'm going to take my strainer and I'm going to pour my lye in over the strainer. And again, if this stuff touches your skin or your eyes or your counter, it's going to burn it. So make sure everything's protected. And you'll see there are a couple chunks, and it's a good thing those chunks didn't go in the soap. And now we're going to take the spatula and we're going to mix this by hand a little bit first, because we want that lye to mix with the other water and the other milk in our recipe before we start stick blending it. Otherwise, you risk accelerating or seizing up the soap. And I wish you could smell this right now. It smells amazing. It smells like brownies with a little bit of rum in my kitchen. So I think that's enough hand mixing. Now I'm going to take the stick blender and I'm going to mix it for about 30 seconds. About 30 seconds. So I'm going to now, before I get it any thicker, it has a nice emulsification but not really a trace. I'm going to pour the part in that's going to go into the titanium dioxide. From there, I'm going to pour a little bit into this container because it has a little pour spout. This will be our caramel frosting. So now we got that all taken care of, but we just have soap. We don't have any color. So I'm going to take my smallest little spoon, which is 1/8 of a teaspoon, and I'm going to put in this 24K gold mica over the sink. And now I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to shake it up to help it disperse. Then I'm going to set it aside. And we want it to start hardening because for us to be able to put it on as a convincing caramel syrup, it needs to be a lot thicker. Now the last step for the colorant is to take a teaspoon of this gorgeous brown oxide, and we're going to put that into the main pitcher, and this will be the main base of our soap, the brown part of it. So now I'm going to set this part aside too. And the recipe I use has a lot of polyunsaturated oils, so I actually have to stick blend it for a long time. So we're going to do a minute, a minute, a minute, a minute, and then start pouring. So now we're going to do a minute, and the yellowish one, which will become white. Okay, now we're going to blend the brown some more. And now a little bit more on the white. And now we're ready to pour part of it in our mold. Now get the rest out. And we're gonna shake it out so that we can get a nice even layer of the brown. Now we're gonna pour about half the white in this just randomly, and we're gonna save the other half for the frosting. Now I'm gonna take my chopstick and I'm gonna do big swirls. This is diagonal. This diagonal. We're gonna go the other diagonal. This will give us a nice, almost peacock-looking pattern, except for on the far left side where it's really thick. And now, last but not least, we're gonna do an infinity swirl, which is just doing like figure eights. Scrape all the sides. And now we're just gonna let this sit because it's gonna take about half an hour for this guy to harden up enough to pipe it. To start, I'm just gonna scrape all the sides. Put everything down in the pot so that it can start gelling, and that's when it starts getting thicker. So the next step is to take a frosting bag like you'd use for cakes or cupcakes, and I've already used this one. I just rinsed it out. You get a tip that'll make you like a nice little whipped cream thing, and then I have a little attachment that makes it easy to change tips. So I'm gonna stick this inside of the solo cup I used for the lye, which I've cleaned out. I'm gonna bend it like this so that nothing leaks out, because it's not quite yet hard enough. So I'm gonna stick that in there. Try to get as much of the bag down as possible. And you'll see I got some on my shirt, so again, when you soap, it's important not to wear clothes that you care that much about. Because if you do, they're gonna get oil stains on them and ruin. So now that we have it in the bag, we still need to wait for it to harden. I'm gonna start on the end. We're gonna do little frosting blobs. So you'll see I finished the top, but I still have some left. So I'm going to go through and just pipe some more on top at random where there's little holes. And I'm going to pour cinnamon through it to top our soap. I have already put cinnamon in this little cup because I don't want to mix cinnamon I'm going to eat with cinnamon I'm touching with soap. I'm going to pour this all on the strainer. You could also use mica for this, but I figure cinnamon's a lot cheaper than mica is. And it's anti-inflammatory, so I might as well use real cinnamon. So now we're going to go back and forth. Now the other way. Back for the cut tomorrow. This is what it looks like all hardened. I got my handy dandy little soap cutter from Arizona Soap Supply. It's $50. Highly recommend. Now we're gonna just make little end cuts and I'll save these and sell these. And then now we're gonna do 1-inch cuts. There's what it looks like inside. Stick them on a big baking tray like this so they dry and cure just like normal soap. These are the ones we use because obviously we don't want to use bars that we could sell. Here's a close-up what the bars of soap look like.